Bruck opened his eyes, feeling a light tap in his heart and a stale taste in his throat, that specific airplane smell, a mixture of conditioned air and something metallic that was hard to describe. He looked around, peering at rows of identical seats, the backs of which rose in gray-blue faces, like strict high-rise buildings in the city. The world seemed to come alive around him. The sound of engines vibrated rhythmically, passengers rustled with food packages and sweetly sniffled, immersed in their thoughts. The light indicators on the panel above him blinked. The
"Fasten seatbelts"
sign lit up, and the low hum of the engines intensified, preparing the plane for takeoff. And slightly wavy, almost black hair fell gently on his forehead, framing a face with sharp cheekbones. His brown eyes, usually sparkling with hidden mischief, reflected anxiety today. He ran a finger along his right brow, where a small scar remained, a memory of a childhood fall from his bike. The dark stubble left from his morning shave only emphasized the weariness in his gaze, but something felt off. That feeling, sticky like a lingering nightmare, crept up on him at the most inopportune moment, and it was not the usual fear of flying. It was something more, as if he already knew how this journey would end.
Those dreams again? No, this isn't just a dream, it's something real.
Bruck thought, feeling sweat bead on his back. Inside, something tightened painfully, as if fragments of vague images were rising from the depths of his memory. The airplane, the seats, the lights. And fear, an elusive, indescribable panic. The passengers around him seemed oblivious to his state. To his left, a man in headphones was mumbling indistinctly, lost in his own world, while across the aisle, a grandmother was feeding a little girl candies. Everything felt unnervingly ordinary. Yet there were details that troubled him. Bruck felt this flight as if he had lived it hundreds of times before. He closed his eyes, hoping to dispel this strange episode, but the same vague images returned: twisted metal, the roar of engines, screams.
What the hell is going on?
His thoughts tangled, brushing against the edges of consciousness, trying to grasp an answer that was about to become obvious. The sound of the engines intensified, and the plane began to ascend slowly into the air. Bruck felt gravity pulling him down, pressing him into his seat. His hands unconsciously gripped the armrests so tightly that his knuckles turned white.
I'm not afraid of flying. Or am I? Damn. It feels like I've been here before.
That thought flashed again, like a fragment of a long-forgotten dream. Seconds felt like hours. He stared out the window at the receding horizon until the plane disappeared into the misty clouds, severing his last connection to the ground. Suddenly, a sharp sense of déjà vu washed over him, as if he had seen all this before, the same sounds, the same faces, the same fear. Bruck took a breath, but suddenly the plane jolted sharply. The panel above flickered, and the sound of a siren echoed through the air. Passengers began to exchange anxious glances. And then, no longer able to control his fear, he felt his heart freeze.
This is it. The end?
A thought flashed through his mind, and then everything plunged into darkness. And suddenly he found himself back in the same place. The seat, the belt, the whistling speakers overhead. The plane was preparing for takeoff.
"Fasten seatbelts."
Bruck looked around in shock, cold sweat coursing through his body as his thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of confusion and terror. Waking up again after the plane crash was painful and disturbingly familiar. Bruck opened his eyes sharply, feeling his body pressed back into the seat, his heart racing like mad. The scent of synthetic air hit him, mingled with metallic undertones, just like before. The sound of the engines was back, the same muted noise around him, the same faces of passengers lost in their thoughts. But this time, something was slightly different. Something had changed, but he couldn't grasp what it was. Horrifying images of the last crash flashed through his mind: screaming passengers, collapsing cabin walls, a moment of absolute horror, and then darkness. Bruck looked around, feeling his hands tremble. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe deeper, hoping that this feeling, reminiscent of an eternal nightmare, would leave him. And then, when he opened his eyes again, a figure appeared before him. Dark, misty, in the shape of a human silhouette, but with eyes that seemed to burn from within with a dim light.
Who are you?
Bruck whispered, struggling to suppress the tremor in his voice. The words didn't sound ordinary, but his inner voice screamed in terror at facing something so alien. The darkness before him rippled like a living cloud, slowly revealing a full figure. There was no doubt this was not a human, but rather something otherworldly. The entity introduced itself as Armavirius, and its voice resonated as if from a distance, echoing in Bruck's mind, creating an atmosphere of icy dread around its words.
You are dead, Bruck.
The being said slowly and hollowly, paralyzed with fear. Bruck felt the words penetrate the depths of his consciousness, imprinting him with unbearable pain.
Dead? No, that's impossible. How? How did this happen?
Bruck asked, even though he understood that he didn't want to know the answer. Inside him, a scream was building, as if his soul resisted the realization of the truth.
You are stuck here.
Bruck asked, even though he understood that he didn't want to know the answer. Inside him, a scream was building, as if his soul resisted the realization of the truth.
This is your hell, your loop, and only you can find the way out. If you can face your fear and accept your fate.
Bruck's internal monologue came alive in his mind as he observed this figure, like a reflection of something dark, long hidden in his soul.
Why? Why me?
The thought raced through his mind, filled with despair and pain. Armavirius smirked, and it was not a physical gesture, but rather something that penetrated his consciousness.
Your fears, Bruck, you hid them deep, but they found their way out. It is your own fear that is now your guide.
And as if to confirm his words, the figure began to fade away, leaving only an endless darkness and a sense of suffocating emptiness. Bruck was left alone, feeling hopeless. The last words of Armavirius echoed in his mind.
Your fears are all that you have left.
He closed his eyes, trying to regain his composure, but instead of the saving calm, images rushed before him. The same fears, the images of disaster and loss that he had feared so much in life. In that moment, he realized his only way out of this hell lay through the labyrinth of his own nightmares. But the question was he ready to face his demons?
Stories may end, but the fear remains. Subscribe to uncover more secrets hidden in the darkness. Until we meet again in the world of nightmarish shadows.